Time now to dig deeper into some of the big stories of the week with the Inside Utah Politics panel. This week we have State Representative Carol Spackman-Moss and former State Representative Holly Richardson. Great to have both of you with us. Thanks for being here in this post-COVID-19 era on Zoom.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you virtually.
Yeah.
Yep.
Glad to have both of you here all the time as well. Okay, let's get right into this. Some big questions are starting to arise about no bid contract spending in the state's response to COVID-19. State Auditor John Dougal has confirmed with me he's looking into somewhere around 50 million purchases or maybe even more. He cannot confirm that all of those are no bid, but says most of them likely are. Representative Spackman-Moss, let's start with you on this one. Your thoughts on the state response, in particular when we're talking about emergency spending.
Well, I think they need to answer a lot of questions, both to the public and to legislators like myself and many others, because we're being told all the time about the necessity to be frugal now, and we're probably going to have to cut budgets. And then the public reads about this, and people contacted me over that hydroxychloroquine buy, and it's just become a huge issue, and it's contrary to everything we hear typically from legislators, particularly Republican legislators. And I think transparency and accountability are the two most important values that we have to show to taxpayers.
We'll get deeper into both transparency and accountability in a minute, but Holly, let's go ahead and bring in your thoughts on the emergency spending efforts we have seen from the state to this point.
Well, I think first we have to acknowledge that elected officials are in a really difficult position. And it's not just the elected officials, right? But everybody working on this. Things are happening so quickly, and there's all kinds of information that's coming out and coming so rapidly that I think they're in a darned if you do and darned if you don't position, because if you don't respond quickly enough, then you're going to have a bunch of people mad at you. And if you respond quickly, then you have potential problems like we see come up right now. But at the same time, right, you have people who say, and you see it right with the opening a little bit more of the state, people are like, okay, you're not the boss of me, right? And that there's other people who are like, look, our rate is still going up. So yes, I'm absolutely for accountability and transparency. I always have been. But I also think that people who have been leading this response are doing really some heavy lifting under really incredibly difficult circumstances and trying to do the best that they can. So I'm going to give them a little bit of grace. Okay,
Representative Spackman-Moss, I want you to go ahead and weigh in on that factor, because that's what they will argue. Look, we have to act, and we have to act fast. So your thoughts on that?
Okay, well, I can give some of them a pass, but not all of them, because a lot of these expenditures were driven by politicians, not by public health officials. And that huge buy of hydroxychloroquine and the attempt to put in a $6 million, $8 million stockpile, when that drug had not been proven. And as we're seeing all the emails revealed, people are saying things like in government are saying, well, we have to bend the rules. Well, to me, bending the rules is equivalent to, sometimes it's equivalent to breaking the law. And there are a lot of friendships and charges of cronyism that look like it was driven as much by politics as it was sound medical science. And that's the thing that concerns me. Friend of a friend of a friend got the state to buy millions of dollars worth of something. Those are the things that don't pass the smell test. And that's what we're asking about. That's what Democrats are asking about. That's what the public is asking us about.
Holly, address those specifics right there, because we have seen some situations, especially the hydroxychloroquine purchase, where even the governor and others have said, okay, this was a mistake, we shouldn't have done it. And you can start to put this line together of the same people that are ending up with these multi-million-dollar no-bid contracts. So address that specifically.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that we need to be careful and perhaps more careful. But again, I think we're caught in this bind, right? It's not just the state of Utah that said, hey, we think this malaria med might be helpful, right? When we first started seeing this internationally, right, with people in Italy who were saying, hey, in France, we think that there's something here. We think that people are getting better on this. And then all of a sudden that translated from, we see a few people to, oh my gosh, let's everybody do it. And I think we've learned in Utah that was a little too fast. We jumped too fast. But I think that it's important to try and weigh how long does it take to go through an RFP process. And I don't like no bid contracts. I don't think they're smart at all. But can you do it in a more rapid manner, right? How do you make the decision between this is going to be the wonder drug and this is totally unproven medically, right? I mean, I think there's this line.
So Representative Spackman-Moss, when you talk about accountability, who's accountable in these situations in your mind?
Well, I'd say start with the governor and then Lieutenant Governor Cox, who's the head of the task force. But when these decisions were actually overriding good, sound science, and if you read the Deseret News article about the emails, Dr. Angela Dunn was at odds with that use or proposed use of it. And who was the person in the United States that was touting that drug first? President Trump.
True.
Not a doctor. And so when the medical experts and epidemiologists of the U are saying, no, this drug is not even close to being tested enough for its efficacy, not to mention the kind of side effects that are associated with it. My pharmacist calling me and telling me, he's on the state pharmacy board, there is zero reason that any pharmacists need additional supplies of this. We have plenty. So that part of it doesn't say transparency and accountability in mind.
Holly, one last thought on this issue before we move on to another one. Both the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor, when asked about this, said we didn't know about it. We've seen emails come forth since then that maybe question, they were on the thread and they probably should have known about it. Was that an answer that was acceptable to you when we're talking specifically about this drug purpose, that we didn't know about it?
Yeah, and here's why, because I know even in my time in the legislature, sometimes there are things that come so fast and furious that you think you know, but you don't really know. And it may be that they were looking at a different area. I do know that the Governor's Office of Management and Budget, the GOMB, was really involved in some of these decisions. And it may have been that they just said, okay, look, we trust you guys, go and do it. I don't know for sure. But I do think that there's a little bit of grace, I think, that needs to be allowed in this situation. And look, everybody's doing the best that they can, and they're trying to walk this line between keeping people safe and maybe, like Representative Moss said, pharmacists did not see shortages, but who could have guessed, I know I couldn't, that we were going to have shortages of toilet paper. I mean, I just didn't foresee that. And now we have shortages of meat. So it could have been that they were looking down the road and saying, what if the supply chain is broken?
Okay, we have about a minute left, but I want to give each of you 30 seconds to share your thoughts on the transition into moderate risks. We've now seen businesses reopen, more people out and about. How's the process going from your perspective? Representative Spackman-Moss, let's start with you. 30 seconds.
I think it's mixed. I'm seeing a lot on this Nextdoor app in my area, the argument with masks or not masks. My husband and I went to Costco the other day. Everybody's wearing masks. It worked very well. I'm hearing at some of the other local places like a meat market in Holiday that some customers are very angry about it. I mean, just to protect other people. It just seems like the considerate thing to do.
Okay.
But I do see a lot more people gathering together, close together, teenagers and others. So it is a concern.
All right, Holly, the final 30 seconds are yours. Your thoughts on what you're seeing.
I don't think it's going well, not in Utah County. I think people said, okay, we have sheltered in place for long enough and we are done. And so I go to stores. I'm one of the only people wearing a mask. I had a friend who drove up the canyon over the weekend and it was absolutely jam-packed, not one iota of social distancing. So we'll see what happens in a couple of weeks, but I'm not so sure it's going that great.
Really great conversation. Both of you, appreciate having you with us. Thanks so much.